All man's problems come from the inability to just sit by himself and do nothing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Behind Their Success podcast. I am Faden Squires, the host, and today we are joined by Reuven Shelef, a visionary executive coach, management consultant, and founder of Out of the Box Consulting. With over 30 years guiding Fortune 500 leaders and tech innovators, Reuven's expertise in organizational transformation and authentic leadership has helped countless executives unlock their true potential. Reuven, welcome on Behind Their Success.
Hi, Peyton. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, Reuven. So tell us a little bit about what you do currently.
Most of the time, I'm untangling complex challenges. Now, happens to be the name of the methodology that I developed, and I coined the term just about 15 years ago, and I trademarked it. The essence of the work that I do is a combination between what I learned as an engineer, as a farmer, as a military guy, and field intelligence, and the engineering was in startups and large corporations. And then what I did was I fused all my professional learning and experience with my personal journey of growth and development. And that culminated with articulating this methodology, which is basically how I have been doing my management consulting work for many years. And then it translated to also working with people, regardless if they're if the company is hiring me or if they're hiring me personally.
Yeah. So unraveling complex problems, huh? How do you begin to attack a problem?
The biggest challenge that people have is that everything is in their mind. When things are in our mind, it's all convoluted, and it's very hard to figure out what's actually running the show.
Yeah.
Too many thoughts and too many forces. And this is only our internal world. I say us, just generalizing human beings. Of course, everyone is different. But if I look at the common denominator, and I built this whole methodology on my personal experience, so learning from others as I worked with them, I allow myself to generalize. But of course, every person is different. So when we start untangling, the first thing to do is to get it out of our head. And this is a common practice, nothing new. People know the term brain dump.
Yep.
And we could do a brain dump of a specific person. We could do a brain dump of a team, of a collective, of group knowledge, whatever we're working with. We take all that convolution out of our head. And as we do that and put it on paper, or these days, electronic format,
or AI, right? Just talk
more often. Yeah, one of my dreams many years ago was to develop an application that, I'm an engineer after all. I was thinking, how can I fetch all the thoughts that are running in my mind automatically? Mm-hmm. Because the rate of thoughts is much faster than the rate I could articulate them. So I'm missing out on many things. So I had this dream, and I still have it, and to have this technology that will document all the thoughts that a human has. It seems like we're getting closer and closer.
We're not very far away, are we? Yeah.
It used to be a crazy fantasy, and now,
now if you just carry AI around in your pocket, almost, if you vocalize everything, it's going to know pretty much everything you think.
Yeah, and if maybe Musk already with his chips implanted, stuff, maybe it's already working. I don't know, but in any case, it's extremely powerful to simply articulate everything that's going on in our mind. Sometimes this is pretty fascinating. For some people, it's a very quick process, like a few minutes and they'll be done, and some will take hours. At a certain point, everything is out there and we can start working with it. And of course, as we start working with everything that's outside of ourselves, things keep on popping, but much slower rate, because whatever already we articulated is out there, so we don't have to repeat that. And sometimes it's, did I mention that? Yes, it's written there. And then the beautiful thing is, one of the next steps is we take everything that's out there and group the items in different groups or groupings, and then when I have something else to put out there, I can already associate it with a specific group, and we start building intelligence around, okay, here is everything, but it's not just convoluted mess. It's starting to take shape, and that's next step of the work is to distinguish issues, entities, people, forces, what's actually going on. And there's that's a beginning, just to answer your question.
Yeah. And that's, like you said, that's not groundbreaking advice or anything, like you said, kind of new, right? Like it's like, journaling, right? Or, you hear people, suggest to do that. And it is a simple thing, but here's the thing, 99% of people don't do it. So while it's very simple, people just don't take the action. Right?
Yeah. And journaling is a great tool. And I recommend journaling in the morning, first thing in the morning, and last thing before we go to sleep. However, journaling, typically people who journal, it's left at that. So, they journal, and then of course they get the benefits of journaling, whether insight or relief, etc. But the things that were written down typically stay where they're at. Maybe one or two are dealt with, kind of like a to-do list for tomorrow if I forgot, or we're talking about a much more massive journal, so to speak, and then we morph it into something completely different from where it started.
And that's some great work. And if, any of the listeners haven't even tried doing those first steps of just trying to, you have this subject in your head and you're just rolling around with it over and over again, journaling that, a lot of the people and entrepreneurs I kind of run around with, we've all tried to hold each other accountable to this journaling type practice. But it's amazing, you just set down a pen and paper and ask yourself one question, and you're not allowed to do anything for, say, 15 minutes except to write down some about that question. And you can figure out a lot of stuff in that time. It's just it's a practice to develop, because if you're kind of your typical kind of hard driving entrepreneur, just sitting still, not doing something, just being, very hard.
Yeah, I remember the time, it was just after I completed my military service of 4 years. Mm-hmm. And there were a few months until the semester started, and there were still a couple months before I was planning to go abroad for a backpacking trip. And I found myself sitting in my parents' home on the sofa, and I had nothing to do, and it drove me crazy. Now, I was 22 years old with already a lot of experience in multidisciplinary aspects of life, and I was just taken down by, I don't know what to do with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't handle the quiet, if you would ask me, and that's even before I studied engineering, but if you would ask me 20 years ago, if you would ask me, hey, Reuven, are you spiritual? Mm-hmm. I would tell you, what are you talking about? Spiritual. Yeah. I'm an engineer. If I can't touch it with my hands, it doesn't exist.
Yep.
That's how I was. And then I went through a journey of learning and experiencing that showed me how spiritual I am. And spirituality, by the way, for me has nothing to do with religion. Yeah. It's my connection to the universe, or however every person can define it or articulate it. Today, when I have a moment of quiet, I cherish it. It's the most creative time. It's the most awesome time to be present with nature, with a human being, just being. I didn't have the distinction of being. Mm-hmm. I was a human doer, not so much a human being. So,
yeah, and you're talking to the whole listener group is probably a bunch of human doers, right? Everybody's wired a little different, and generally the people that end up in entrepreneurships are very good at doing, and that's why they're so successful and do all their stuff. But I just pulled up a quote that I thought in my head is from Blaise Pascal, and it says, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room. That all man's problems come from the inability to just sit by himself and do nothing. And that's a superpower in today's world, really, like the fact that the amount of distractions that we have just in our lives, it's thousands of times as much as it used to be, just, I don't know, a few generations ago. The ability to just ignore and block out the noise and focus on the things that you need to focus on to move whatever you're trying to move forward, that's really a superpower.
And the tools also changed. So if in the past, the only way that was considered to center and be present was meditation and sitting meditation, one of the reasons that I didn't come close to meditating is because the only way to meditate that was presented to me that I knew of is sitting meditation. And I was always chubby. I couldn't even sit on my butt properly in kindergarten.
I can't cross my legs very well.
Exactly. So I couldn't even if when I wanted to, and, I went sometimes on vacation, there was in the hotel or meditate, woke up early, went, and I couldn't even sit. I couldn't take it. So it took a while until I happened to be exposed to forms of meditation that aren't sitting meditation, and that enabled me step by step to start meditating. I actually started meditating before I knew I'm meditating. That's pretty cool. So I started reaping the benefits. So at the time that I understood, this is a moving meditation. I thought it's just a dance. There's a whole story how I got into that. But it was one of the first forms of meditation that I practiced. And I was just letting my body lead. And I enjoyed the music. It's a discipline called 5 Rhythms. It takes you through a wave of different rhythms. So it's really fun. It's a whole experience, body, mind, spirit experience. And it doesn't matter where you start. Some people come in knowing that it's a meditation and they benefit from that part immediately. I had no idea what I'm going to. I just responded to an invitation, a recurring invitation from a good friend. And I found myself after a while noticing that I'm getting so many insights and deep, like I'm starting to cry in the middle of this dance. So I look, why was I touched? What touched me? Why was I moved there? And it started just like in any meditation or deep process work. I got to see things from my past that were subconscious. I got to notice my limiting beliefs, what's in the moment, what's limiting me. There are so many stories, so many insights, so many transformations that occurred during that 5 Rhythms practice. And that's just one form of meditation that is, for maybe 2 years, my friend invited me to dance in Sausalito, and 150 people dancing at 11 a.m. I said,
what are you doing?
What? In a gym. It's kind of like a gym. I said, are you crazy?
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. You want to go to a disco? I'm a 70s guy, right? You want to go to a disco at night? Okay. But why would I do that? And she was persistent. And then when I showed up, it just changed my life.
When you finally took the leap of faith and showed up, open mind, changed your life.
So, and there are several things like that. And touching on the point that you raised in today's life and your audience, there are tools today that bring the essence of meditation in very small commitment quantas. So some people say, that's fine. I meditate only 10 minutes every morning. 10 minutes for an entrepreneur is a long time, especially in the morning when they have to rush to their burning issues.
Yeah.
So there is a technique, for example, that I got exposed to it actually relatively recently, but I loved it because it brings so many aspects of personal development, especially for busy people and executives. It came out of Stanford research and engineers actually that started this method, and it's an app. And basically, you take what you already do every morning, like wake up, even before you get out of bed, brush your teeth, whatever, until you go to the kitchen to prepare something to drink. If you do that, that period of time, which could be several minutes on average, that is time that can be used for meditation. And this methodology teaches how to do that. And I fell in love with it. I've been practicing it for about a year now. And it gave me a level of power over my negative thoughts. Like if before I had to work a little bit harder to do it. Oh, now it's given to me just by attaching this practice to my existing morning routine. Very powerful.
Yeah, my guess it's super powerful there is because you're kind of habit stacking to a degree, right? Like you do the same thing every single morning. So it's very easy to like attach a new thing to that, right? And put it in that rhythm. And then eventually, like after a little bit, like, well, and it's just part of your rhythm and you do it every morning without thinking, right?
Exactly. Habit stacking is one of the keys in this aspect. Yeah.
People talk about get your morning routine and everything all together. And it's not really necessarily, because it's your morning routine. It's just it's easier to develop this really nice process that you stick to every day. But that's, I credit that for changing my life of like going to the gym and my physical, like, I think, working out at the gym and that and the sauna has really kind of become my like meditative practice, or at least one of the few areas where I can either like listen to some music or whatnot, but really just like shut off my brain, right? Like get into like a meditative type state and let just things rise to the surface.
Yeah. I found in the past year something very surprising. What triggered this comment is when you said music.
Yeah.
So, my daughter listens to music while she does work. She has some serious mind work and she listens to music in parallel. I can't do that. When I focus on my work, I need quiet. And then I found that for certain tasks, for certain areas of work, I actually do things better with either music, a certain very specific kind of music, or even certain TED Talks.
Mm-hmm.
So it occurred to me that when I listen to I don't even have to watch it. When I listen to a TED Talk, it fires certain areas in my brain, the creative parts of my brain, that help me fish out memories or creative thinking aspects that don't come otherwise.
Yeah.
That's very new, relatively new to me, and I'm very excited. So I actually match, I match the physical environment. I'll generalize it because this can be useful for anyone, regardless of music or audio. It's very important to match the physical environment to the task at hand. And if the task at hand might be to meditate, it's not new that in the shower, people are creative.
Yeah, it's because they finally shut it off.
Shut it off, and there is a physical sensation. So the common denominator, if you look at also meditation and in forms of visualizations, it's focusing on our five senses and letting the sixth sense come in. So it's the physical environment that we actually use when we meditate or when we put ourselves in situations that empower us through the body. The body-mind connection is much, much greater than people tend to think.
Mm-hmm.
And our body is so vast with all our senses that it's a vehicle in which we can access areas of our psyche or spirit or emotion through the body just by placing our body in certain physical environments like hot mineral water baths in nature, especially in Big Sur. A place called Esalen is my all-time favorite. You sit in this hot water that came right from Mama Earth, no treatment, and you're sitting above the ocean, so the waves are breaking under you. So imagine all the sound, and sometimes you'll see whales and dolphins and sea otters, but the immersion in hot water is so powerful, and the sound. So you think of all the senses. You have the stink of the sulfur, sometimes more than
more than you like, right?
You have the physical sensation of the hot water, and you can vary the temperature by adding cold water because when it comes out of Earth, it's really hot for advanced only. And then the visual is the 180 degrees of ocean, and sometimes live creatures passing. and you have the sound of the waves. So you're immersed in a physical sensation. You cannot avoid being impacted internally in a very, very precious way.
Yeah, that's interesting. That makes me think, I've never done this. I've thought about doing this, but those like senseless float spas or whatever, right? I assume that's to try to, design an environment like that, or to kind of mask all your senses so you can, it's just you and like you're experiencing nothing and just you and your brain or whatever, right?
It's the closest you get to the divine without
Death.
being without being on the way. It's very similar to what people report who had near-death experiences. Very similar.
So, I'm a CPA by background. You're an engineer by background, and, we're very concrete kind of thinkers. But, the more and more I learn about this stuff, it's like there's nothing woo-woo about any of it. It's all very scientific, and we're all just all biological beings, all experiencing life and subject to biology. And the more and more you understand that and how the brain works and how to, we can kind of manipulate some things because we understand the brain a little bit, the more you can kind of just gain control over your life.
Yeah, well said.
Are you looking for a new tax experience? Looking for an advisor that actually brings you high-level ideas and proactively plans so you aren't overpaying your taxes? Or how about one that even just responds and communicates in a timely fashion? If any of that resonates with you, you probably just have a tax preparer and not a tax planner. And it is through the tax planning process where all the value is found. And when tax planning is done right, it has a positive return on investment. I'm Peyton Squires. I'm a CPA and owner of Squires Tax Planning. We work alongside entrepreneurs and high-income earners, helping them pay the least amount of income taxes, both legally and ethically. We have saved our clients hundreds of thousands of dollars through specific strategies, and we guarantee we can find multiple tax strategies that your current tax preparer hasn't told you about. If that interests you, head over to squirestaxplanning.com. There you can take our free assessment to see how likely it is that you are overpaying on your income taxes. From there, you can also book a free tax discovery call with our team to see what it would look like to have us working for you.
So, Reuven, what's one piece of advice you consistently share with them that may help maybe some of the listeners kind of regain some clarity or momentum in kind of what they're doing?
One piece of advice. Well, it's not necessarily... Yeah, no, it's, I feel the pressure like, I have to give the best one.
Yeah, the best one, right? No,
but the best,
just something you see as a common problem, right?
Yeah. Common problem is, and especially in corporate environments or in startups, people tend to deal with symptoms. So, something goes wrong, or, someone's not happy with something, and the first thing that we're presented with is a symptom. Or a group of symptoms. And then the typical approach is to go and deal with the symptom before taking the time and putting in the effort to looking, why did this happen? Where is it coming from? What's the root cause or the root causes? Mm-hmm. And then deal with those. That's, I think, very common in business, especially in business environments, not only, also personal.
In the medical world,
yeah,
that's all we ever do is deal with symptoms, right?
Yeah. So as you gather, my personal life and business life are very interconnected. So everything that I say in the world of business is personal and vice versa. But yeah, it's something, and many companies don't. The people aren't empowered to dive deeper. It's considered hindrance. It's considered you're digging for the sake of digging. Why are you causing problem? Why are you? Or sometimes people are just afraid because it's usually managing upward, and many people many people don't feel comfortable doing so they just take orders and deal with the symptom, and it happens again, or the situation deteriorates, etc.
Yeah, and I love that you made the comment of like your life and your business life is not separated. Well, That's true, right? And that means you live in integrity, really. But like that, the world has a certain set of rules, right? And we're all just kind of trying to figure those out and live aligned with those, right? And the more we can align with those, the better our lives can kind of be. And a lot of the work and self-development and stuff we do is trying to get aligned with a lot of that stuff, and not living in separate components and things of your life. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I love the word alignment. I actually introduced a program called Alignment Excellence Program. And that's for people in the workplace, especially cross-functionally. So early on in my career, I discovered that the biggest problems in an organization are happening between the functions. So every function, department function,
and they do fine.
They have their challenges, but there is a strong leader at the top, at least in the organizations that I was in first, 10 years, great people. Each manager of the organization, each VP handled pretty well the issues in their own organization. So I was looking at the issues that we're facing, and I noticed that it's no man land. In order to solve the actual problem that I'm facing, and I was a young engineer then, but it didn't matter to me. I wanted to get to the root cause, and I was committed to fixing whatever I can fix, or whatever for the sake of the company. Like we are developing products. I want the product that I'm developing to be the best it could be, and for the customers to be as happy as they can. So I would find where things are going wrong, and typically the things that stayed wrong, unattended to, were between the functions.
Yeah.
So that's where I put myself in order to remedy them. And that's how I got exposed to so many departments in high tech, and way beyond my capacity or my job description. And I worked in startups, so it was encouraged. And in those startups, it was encouraged. Not in every company it's encouraged. Sometimes you'll get a lot of heat for stepping on other people's toes or on crossing your functional boundaries. I didn't care about any of that, and I was supported by management. So it worked well. And later on, what I discovered after the first years, I would handle the specific issues that were in no man land. So I became, and in a company, one would say, well, why isn't there someone that is responsible for the cross-functional aspects?
Well, yeah, somebody has to be responsible. Somebody has to own it, and that's part of the problem, right? Yeah.
And there is. So there is a CEO, and if it's a larger company, there is a COO, Chief Operating Officer. There might be a CFO or a finance guy who cares cross-functionally. Yeah. But and there is IT, but IT is limited to IT. Yeah. And that's it. So the CEO doesn't have time to deal with a specific issue, and they shouldn't be. That's, by the way, one of the early projects that I did as a management consultant was to actually release a CEO from working in the trenches, just figuring out what went wrong between the functions. So long story short, I understood this phenomena, and then I started focusing my work and my consulting on the cross-functional aspect of things, and specifically the alignment between them. Because I couldn't be, especially when I'm an outside consultant, even if I'm not kind of McKinsey consultant that comes in, does analysis, and hands you a slide deck, and then you're off to the races on your own. I'm more like a mini Deloitte, where we actually do the work.
Yeah.
But we couldn't do the work for each company. They have to do the work. So I found myself actually teaching my clients cross-functional alignment. And once the people can work together and be aligned, you don't need a higher power to deal with the problems. You can eliminate the problems from happening. And if they occur, you work together to solve them. If the cross-functional issue is between sales and marketing, then the VP sales and the CMO can work together to solve that. If it's between engineering and manufacturing, the VP manufacturing or operations and engineering can work together to figure it out. So that's a majority part of the work that I do is around alignment, and specifically cross-functional alignment. The beautiful thing is we're talking about companies and product companies, etc. This works also with people just at large. What are the functions? Husband, wife, child. Yep. These are different functions run by different people. And sometimes within ourselves, we have different functions and departments, right? We want this and we want this, and they're competing. How do we resolve this? So this is the kind of work that I do.
Yeah, I love that. You know, it reminded me when you were talking there, even when you brought up, husband and wife. My wife and I were on a trip a couple of weeks ago in the Dominican, and like we did a bunch of entrepreneurs. But long story short, we were doing some like marriage work, and one of the sessions was on like, okay, just like professionally run your household. Of like, it's everybody has their duties they're responsible for, right? Like, and it's just trying to professionalize that and systemize that to some degree of like, okay, my wife owns this, I own this. It's not that we don't do the other thing for the other person when we need to. It's just like ultimately she's responsible for X getting done and I'm responsible for X getting done. And it's just communicating that and clarifying that, because if neither one of us knows that we're the owner of it, right, or ultimately the buck stops with me or whatever, right, then you just get into finger pointing, and sales says it's marketing's fault. Sales says you give me crappy leads, and marketing says you can't close the leads. And everybody just points at each other. Right? Yeah.
Well said.
Because that is the issue. You got the CEO up there doing the thing, and each individual department is doing a great job. It's just those little tribes below you, departments, can just be battling between each other, and then it just kills the entire organization.
My wife laughs at me that I have a process for everything and anything.
That's that engineering brain you got there.
But where I experience true fulfillment is when she adopts processes and kind of then, oh my God, you have a process for that. I'm so excited.
Yeah. And, you can take it to as far extreme as you want. And like, no joke, this was a room full of a bunch of spouses, very high performing spouses. And like, we were talking about scheduling intimacy on the calendar, like a full blown, which is kind of, might rub some people the wrong way, I guess.
So my wife and I did a lot of workshops around sensuality, sexuality, and I remember the first time that we were invited to schedule intimacy, we didn't like that idea.
Yeah, that puts a lot of people off, right? Immediately.
It's supposed to be spontaneous. Yeah. And then after practicing what we learned by the book, there's a whole difference when you do, when you learn something, you read a book, you do a workshop, or you get to practice something. There's a whole world of difference between doing the work as it was designed versus doing your own thing. Once we did the work as designed, miracles happened. As long as you treat everything with humor and stay connected no matter what, which is one of the principles that I use, then you can break through unbelievable challenges.
Yeah. I had a mentor of mine, I don't know, a year and a half ago, and it's always just stuck out to me. He just goes, Peyton, you're just winging life. You're just winging life. And that is because he is like the ultimate get clear on everything you're trying to do. And like the more you schedule out and get so clear on what you're doing, even intimacy, you make sure it happens then, right? Because like we have 3 small kids, we have busy schedules, we have that stuff just falls by the wayside unless you're intentional.
Yeah. And don't forget to schedule time to do nothing or to not have schedule. So a block of time, have a scheduled time to be non-scheduled. That's where many people fail or many teachings fail too.
Yeah. And that's where people also too, they hear people like me and you talk about this and they're like, oh man, that sounds like a prison. And it's like all these things and I never get to do whatever I want to do. And it's actually the complete opposite. But the more dialed in and scheduled you get, it absolutely creates freedom in your life, not takes away freedom.
Yeah. And it's, by the way, at a certain point, after you do it enough time and it's a true practice, you become part of the practice. You notice that you don't need to adhere at a certain point. At a certain point, you don't need to adhere anymore to the rigorous aspect of it, because you flow.
Kind of become a part of you, yeah.
And you flow, and things happen already. It's similar to the habit stacking that we talked about. Once it's already ingrained in you that every day you attend to this and every day you attend to that, if the timing shifts, no big deal. And you're calm because you trust that everything will be handled. And that's when the rigor stays as a framework, but you already are beyond. It's like the transition from learning, practicing, being real good at something, and then towards mastery. We're always towards mastery in certain things at certain levels, but that experience of flow, of surfing, that's when we're in the zone. When it happens on things that were really hard and rigorous before, that's really fulfilling.
Yeah, and that's where you've broken through. And I hit some point, I've been working out consistently for over 5 years, and somewhere in there, I knew I had hit that point where it's like, no, I'm not like going for a goal. It's like I just like working out. Like I like it in of itself. And then it's like, well, you've won there, right? Or you're not going to quit, right? And that's it's getting that point. It's gaining that mastery, though, right? Like I can go in the gym with my brain totally shut off, and like it's like driving home, right? Driving home, you forget, and all of a sudden you snap. Yeah, you're home, and you're like, I made all those turns, right? It's the same thing, like in the that's like getting in a flow state where you're doing something that is so habitual. Your brain can like shut off because like all the instructions are already in there. Like it's just doing its thing. It's just pretty amazing stuff. And people don't realize that's actually how your brain works.
and that's also, by the way, a form of meditation.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're hitting a total flow state there, right? When you like almost go unconscious, right? You've kind of hit a flow state. But Reuven, man, this has been an amazing conversation. What's the best way people can connect with you, get to know more about, your consulting and anything you do?
Yeah, my website, ReuvenShelef.com, is available. And if you want to, if something struck a chord here and you want to get in touch with me, chat, and share where you're at, what are the challenges that you're experiencing, you can book a call with me, a free call at meetreuven.com. Special URL for podcast interviews, meetreuven.com, and you can book time with me, and I'll be happy to chat.
Awesome. Well, Reuven, I appreciate you coming on. Anything you want to leave the listeners before we sign off?
I'm really moved by these kinds of conversations where we get to share with each other personal experiences that had an impact on us and on others. And our personal experiences are tied to our professional life and making a difference in the world. I appreciate your work, Peyton. I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to be here with you. And thank you for doing what you're doing. I'm sure your audience are grateful, as I am your audience as well. Yeah. I'm grateful for your work, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, Reuven, I absolutely. I can tell you're doing some good work for certain. But yeah, man, appreciate you. And listeners, we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you found it valuable, please rate, review, and share it. That is the best way to help us build this and reach more people, as we're trying to accomplish our goal of help creating more healthy, wealthy, and wise entrepreneurs. You can follow us on social media by searching for me, Peyton Squires, or going to PeytonSquires.com. On the website and social media, we're always sharing tips of personal growth, and there we can actually interact. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.